Welcome back everyone, this is Stéphane from the French Cooking Academy. I'm filming from France in Provence, actually in Aix-en-Provence at the moment, and look what I found at the market here. An amazing looking tomato. Now of course the best recipe you can make with those is the tomate farcie and the stuffed tomatoes, which is an absolute classic from this region. The legend says even that in 1792 the soldiers from Marseille actually went to Paris to join the conflicts against Prussia and brought with them the recipe of the stuffed tomato. I haven't done that to the channel, so today is the best day to make that recipe. So let's go. Okay, so for the ingredients, stuffed tomatoes from the Provence region, you need flavor. So first off, large tomatoes, nice and juicy. And then you're gonna need, of course, the meat, and which is the stuffing. I'm going to go into details after to explain you what's in there. You're going to need a duxelle of mushroom. If you don't know how to make it, we've seen this many times. It should pop up on the screen right now for a link on how to make it. Some parsley, garlic, some Madeira or cognac or Armagnac if you want, it's optional. And I'm going to use some end bits of lamb cutlets to make a little jus, a little broth to go with the tomatoes. Now the first step needs to happen, of course, is cutting the tomatoes. So large tomatoes, if they were really huge, you could actually cut them in half like that. But here, you know, they are kind of good size. So you just want to cut a little bit of the top there. We want to leave some meat, but we want to have, you know, a nice bottom like that, nice and thick, and then a decent size hat. I like to have a bit of flesh in there. Once the hat has been cut off, you've got your tomato. The most important here, of course, is to empty the tomato. Now, a lot of time you will see people emptying totally the tomatoes, and you all end up with only stuffing to eat, and there's tomato skin. So what you want is kind of go easy on removing the insides. You can use a spoon, and very slowly like this, you can cut off some of the compartment and remove the flesh bit by bit. So this is not very ripe, so it's a bit hard, but take your time and just like me, do the compartments, but do leave some flesh inside, so it's going to be nice and juicy when you cook it. Okay, so once you're done, you've got all the pulp on one side here, and these are my tomatoes with the head. So what you need to do, so while we're going to make the stuffing, you take a little bit of salt, not too much, and we're going to sprinkle some salt to help to have further juice to come out of the tomatoes. So put the salt first, and then I'm going to put them in my dish that I've got here, upside down like that, and to allow for all the juice to drop down. So you do this for all the tomatoes. Now that the tomatoes are done and salted and they're resting on the side, we have time to prepare the stuffing. Now what goes into the stuffing? I'm sure that's what you wonder. Well, the stuffing actually for stuffed tomatoes in ancient time could be made with all the leftover meats. So anything that has been roasted or braised, you can use veal or pork or chicken or even raw ham if you want to make a stuffing. Now here I bought this one, which is a mix of pork, chicken and beef, and it's raw meat, and you got a lot of fatty bits and some lean with a little bit of parsley, and this is gonna be my base. So what I'm gonna start doing is just adding a little salt in there, a little bit of more parsley, and from what Escoffier is saying, to get something really tasty and also to be not too dry, you need to have the duxelle of mushrooms. So the mushrooms, they play an important part. What you can also add is the flesh from the tomatoes. So this can be used for, if you want to use the tomatoes for to make a stock on the side that we're gonna do, but I'm gonna make a different one. So today I'm gonna use some of the flesh and put it in here, and to avoid that the whole mix gets dry. So when it's all in there, I like to add also a little bit of Madeira wine. You can use cognac or Armagnac is actually better, but I've bought this, so I'm gonna use that. So once you're here, use your hand, and we're gonna mix the whole lot together. Once we're done with the first grind, you can actually take a piece of stuffing and taste it. I just did. It's raw meat. It's not the best to do. If it's cooked meat, it's better. And it's enough salt. And I'm going to add one garlic clove, nothing more. And a good grind of black pepper to really have these flavors going. The breadcrumbs that I've got here are not going to go inside the stuffing, but on top of the tomatoes. So now let's stuff the tomatoes. All done, so the stuffing is ready. It smells absolutely beautiful. And the last thing to do now is to stuff the tomatoes. So very easy. So if your tomato is a bit wobbly like this, you want to have it straight, I'm using a small spoon. Put it, tuck it on the side. Boom, my tomato is straight. And yeah, and you just basically then take some of the stuffing. Make sure you fill all of the cavities with the spoon. Yeah, and you don't put like tons of it, but you want a decent amount. So I think here I would say like 3-4 tablespoons of stuffing would be good. So that depends on the size of the tomato. So you go ahead and basically fill the tomatoes. When all of the tomatoes are stuffed, as you can see here, the final bit consists at putting some breadcrumbs on top. Now for me, I put the breadcrumbs on top only because otherwise it tends to dry everything inside. So a little bit of breadcrumbs or a good amount, and then we reserve on the side. You repeat the same for each tomato. As soon as your tomatoes are ready, you take a dish, coat it with butter, and you put your tomatoes inside the dish. Look how lovely these things are. Finish off with a little slice of butter on top of the tomatoes and a drizzle of olive oil. Now we are done and the tomatoes are ready to be cooked, but this is here where things are very important, okay? First off, you don't cook stuffed tomatoes with the hat on. The first cooking times of 25 minutes happens without the hat. The temperature is 180 degrees Celsius, so 356 Fahrenheit, for about 20 to 25 minutes. So you don't want to cook them at a very high temperature. So we're going to start to cook the tomatoes, cook the stuffing, and in the second part we're going to add the hat on and a little sauce that I'm going to show you that we're going to put in the tomatoes to finish it off. Alright, so the tomatoes are in the oven, we've got 25 minutes, and if we want to cook escoffier style, there's always an extra things to do, and we go the extra mile. So escoffier always wants to have a little sauce with anything, and that goes as well for the stuffed tomatoes. So what we're going to make here is a simple jus. These are pieces of lamb cutlets I had from yesterday, just leftovers, and I'm going to fry them brown and add a little vegetable stock and some of the tomato juice I recuperate from the tomatoes to make a little sauce that we're going to serve with the tomatoes. All good. It's been frying now for just 5 minutes. Get a bit of color going, and I'm going to deglaze with some of the pulp of the tomatoes I had before. That should do it. Time to add a little bit of rosemary in there. And I've got about 100 ml of vegetable stock. I'm going to mix that, add a little bit of black pepper, and leave this to simmer for a good 15 minutes, basically the time for the tomatoes to cook. Oh my goodness, look at this absolute disaster. I just took my tomatoes out of the oven for the first 20 minutes and this is what I'm seeing. The tomatoes have totally exploded. And what happened exactly? Well, that's what I was trying to find out. I kind of looked through my recipes, and the reason why this happened is this. That is the juice that has been rendered by this super fresh tomato during the cooking, because I'm not used to have tomatoes that render that much juice back home in Australia. And from what I've read, basically with this kind of super fresh tomato, as the cooking goes, you need to drain the juice out all the time. Otherwise, this is exactly what's going to happen to you. So on my part, it tastes lovely, looks absolutely terrible. I'm just going to cook the hat of these ones on the side just to roast them and leave this one as is. And I've got one more chance with one tomato that I had left. And I'm going to try to do the same thing with the draining method, make sure there's no juice that's going to boil my tomatoes, and see how it goes. So this is an official fail, guys. Let's try to get that back on track. Right, so back for a second time, Operation Stuffed Tomatoes take number 2. This is the ultimate one. I'm gonna put this in the oven and I'm gonna be like a hawk and remove any juice that builds up. So first 20 minutes, let's go. Oh no, 19 minutes in, I've just heard a bad noise in there, like juice coming out. What's going on? Ah! The skin cracked and the flesh start to fall. It's about 20 minutes. I'm gonna put the hat on and hope for the best. Okay people, fingers crossed. On the road to success, take number 2, top element is on, the hat is on, another 10 minutes and we'll see the result or disaster. 10 minutes have passed, guys, and still the tomato looks like an absolute overweight tomato that didn't go to the gym for a long time. Nah, it didn't work. It's all flat, the skin, as you can see, is totally shrink, and the flesh is just falling apart. So what exactly happened? I've been reflecting on this, and this is an official fail of tomatoes. So what I think, first off, I'm using that holiday oven with a fan forced types of heating, and I think that should not be used. Do not use fan forced oven to make these stuffed tomatoes. Just use the one or the function without the fan, with both the top and the bottom elements. Next, the type of tomatoes. I think I've been mesmerized by the look of the tomato at the market, and I just bought it, and I think this is the wrong type. This must be a tomato made for sauces and things like that. Just do not hold well with the heat. And I should have asked the person at the market and said, okay, is this the right type of tomato for stuffed tomato? That was my second mistake. But these things can happen. It's kind of half a disaster, but we still need to taste because, of course, there's a lot of flavors going into that making. So, final step, tasting. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the disaster station. Now, this is the best thing I could get out of the whole thing, but let's not be deterred by that. So, the aim was to use that escoffier sauce first off and to bathe that first on the meats. So you got a nice lamb kind of taste. And now we can try to operate. And I'm just gonna try a little bit of that. So, it doesn't look good, but how does it taste? Wow. Now, it doesn't look good, but the taste, honestly, is there. Now that stuffing with the 3 types of meat, the duxelle of mushroom and that lamb sauce on top, you would eat these things by the dozen. If you want to have a look inside, you can see the stuffing is nicely cooked, not really roasted. I can detach, and there's like real pieces of meat in there as I can detach. Look at that. Wow. But that's it, guys. That completes the video of the day. I hope you've got all the information now on what happened if you use the wrong type of tomatoes. Remember the last tip from me: if you do stuffed tomatoes, use the right type of tomatoes. Of course, number 1. Number 2, do not use a fan-forced oven because that's gonna really break your tomato apart, so you don't want that. Away from that, that recipe is beautiful. The stuffing is really nice, escoffier style, and really not dry, and highly recommended. If you have any question, as always, drop this in the comment section, and as for me, I will see you next time for the next recipe. Take care, bye bye.